The California United Water Coalition was formed to solve California's water reliability issues to help feed the nation and the world.
Good morning. Just have a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. Our new website is up. We really want to encourage all the growers to register on the website, because one of the issues is that there was a transfer of email addresses during the time that we went from my sending out all the stuff individually until the way we're doing it today, which saves me, a lot of time. So I'm happy, but I realize that not everybody may be getting all of the email updates. So for those of you who have not or are not getting updates, please go on the website and register. Now, you don't have to pay, because for those of you who are already paid, we're not going to ask you to pay again. It's just a matter of getting registered on the site. And this way we have your email address and you will get automatic updates from us. The second thing is that by adding our resource section, you will get a lot of information that has not been available to you, both from us and from other sources. And you'll learn a lot just by downloading and reading that information. So I encourage everybody to do that. Regarding Madera County stuff, two things I think are very important. One, if you have not, please make a decision regarding your water meters. I'm going to strongly suggest to each and every one of you that you install mechanical meters, as well as making your choice from the other type, satellite type meters, because there have been issues, some large issues, some small issues, but a lot of issues regarding the calibration and calculation of water. Now, you may say, well, I don't have to because we got plenty of rain this year. Well, I hate to tell you this, but it doesn't matter. Your water will still be measured this year, and you'll still get penalized this year. So I don't want anybody to get surprised when they get a penalty because they weren't paying attention. So please, really think about it, because for some of you, it may be a large bill. Okay, going forward. This is our first attempt at doing a water roundtable. As we go forward for our second and third water roundtables, we would expect that we will collaborate with other groups to put it on. This one was kind of put together by the seat of our pants. So it's not quite as maybe professional as the ones in the future will be. But be that as it may, I think the idea, which I think is solid, which is to get together with those folks who have an interest. Some, I now know we have elected officials here. I appreciate you coming. At the end of the day, our fastest way to get to a solution that works for everybody is public pressure. Unfortunately, our state is largely controlled by special interests. Okay? And those special interests have money and they have power. And they have a lot of free news coverage. And so they can put out things that are, let's say, less than truthful and get away with it. We can't. So what we've got to be able to do is come together and work together. So whether you're an irrigation group here in the San Joaquin Valley, or whether you're a water district in Southern California. We all need water, and we all need to have access to clean, fresh water. It is the responsibility of the state to give that to us. And let's face it, they've failed miserably and continue to fail. So what we've got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got to find a way to come together. So our coalition is not simply a bunch of Madera growers. It is a coalition of people up and down California coming together to solve the problem. And today's main emphasis will be on solutions. And as we go forward, the emphasis will be on solutions. Because there are solutions, and they're not terribly difficult. But it's something that we need to get organized behind, and we need to push. And as we do so, we'll be much better off. Next, we're going to have a special guest. She's from Southern California, has an extensive history in water, probably knows as much about water in this state as anybody. So this is a real treat to get to hear from this lady. Darcy, you want to come up?
I like this podium. I can actually see over it. Normally I have to stand off to the side. So my name is Darcy Burke. I have the pleasure of actually working with the coalition from really your inception. And to see where you started and where you've come in such a short time is really encouraging. To give you a really brief background, I started my water career at an organization called the California-Nevada Association of American Waterworks Association. That association was actually founded by Mulholland and sets the drinking water standards around the world in association with the international AWWA. And from there, I met a gentleman by the name of Chairman Phil Pace, who is chairman of Metropolitan Water District, and he said, "You're going to come work for me." And I said, "No, I'm not." A year later, I was given the project at Diamond Valley Lake Reservoir to build a water education center for Chairman Phil Pace. And from there, I did public affairs, legislative affairs, and regulatory affairs for the Municipal Water District of Orange County. And the first thing I learned in water, if it doesn't have an acronym, it's not real. So it's Metropolitan, it's MODOC, it's DVL, it's SWP, it's CRA. So when I have a new board member, and I actually now serve on a board in Southern California as an elected official, I hand them out an acronym list so that at least you can be part of the conversation. So I'm going to really try really hard this morning not to speak in water speak. And if I do, stop me. So I'm going to talk about Southern California water and why we should all be interested together to solve this problem. So many of you know that Southern California has a variety of imported water sources. And those imported water sources started in the early 1900s when they went to go build the Los Angeles Aqueduct. I'm not going to get into the policy or politics of it. I'm just going to say what happened, okay? So William Mulholland went to the Owens Valley. He figured out a way to move water from the Owens Valley into Los Angeles. And that particular project changed the way Southern California approaches water management. So that particular aqueduct was built for abundance, right? And as soon as that project was done, he went to the Colorado River, and Metropolitan Water District of Southern California was formed, and then we moved water from the Colorado River in the early 40s into Southern California. None of those systems were built for what we needed. All of those systems were built for what we could be. And you fast forward into the late 50s, early 60s, Governor Pat Brown did the same thing with the State Water Project, right? Following right behind the Central Valley Project. None of those projects were built for scarcity. They were built for abundance. These are all the different sources Southern California gets its water. So if you notice, it's not from one source. If you were an investor, this is a beautiful portfolio, right? We have groundwater, we have imported water, we capture surface water, We use conservation as a source of the water we save, then we can use for more people. I like to call it water use efficiency because conservation implies against scarcity, right? So if anybody has followed Los Angeles or Southern California politics, you know we don't all agree. That would be the understatement of the year. When Mark Twain said whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting, I think he was talking about California water law and policy because that's really what it has come down to. One thing that we as Southern California and metropolitan member agencies are, we lawyer up really well. In Metropolitan, there's an entire floor of lawyers, full-time, all the time, every day. So what we have discovered, and under our new chairman, Adán Ortega, have talked about, is what if we did unification and resolution, and we decided to work together, then fight against ourselves. The challenges that we're facing now on the State Water Project, when they cut us back 5%, there are parts of Southern California that are 100% dependent on State Water Project water. 100%. Areas like Malibu, right? Different areas of Ventura. All the places the rich and famous live, like the Kardashians or Tom Selleck, 100% dependent on State Water Project. And we did not have the ability to move Colorado River or Diamond Valley Lake stored water to meet those needs. So those particular areas where we, on health and human water, they're down to 5%. And guess what? They weren't happy, right? All of a sudden now water becomes an issue. Why can't we do interagency transfers? Why can't we get Colorado River? But the most important thing I can tell you about water is to know your history and do your homework. Because back when those areas were first developed, they decided, you know what? State Water Project is such better quality, we don't want that Colorado River water. So we're not going to, don't connect. Really, we're going to have to do more treatment. You can keep it, we're going to keep what we have. Lo and behold, guess what we're working on, people? A big pipeline to interconnect that west side of our service area. The one thing Southern California has done is put their money where their mouth is. That's hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure investment. On the Bay Delta alone, in the last 30 years, I'm not even going back to when the first Bay Delta alternate conveyance subject was brought up, was 1841, people. We've done 137 studies on how to fix the Bay Delta. We're good at studies. We're not good at implementation. We've spent $500 million on studies. 500, that's just Metropolitan. And the challenge that is if Metropolitan gets to a tolerance, if all of us in Southern California said, you know what, we're out. It's cheaper for us to build ocean desal. It's cheaper for us to do direct potable, which is really toilet to tap. Happy to talk about that if you want to. It's cheaper. The rest of the state is pretty much in trouble because we all need to be at the table to make these projects affordable and sustainable, right? So the more hurdles, the more special interest groups that stop it, we have to find alternative measures to make that water happen. 20 million people depend on Metropolitan Water District. That's half of what the Bureau of Reclamation serves. That's exactly 50% of the population. And the entire Bureau was founded to take care of the West, right? If anybody pays attention in headlines, it's always the litigation that makes the cover, right? If anybody's read about the Colorado River lately, it's very exciting times. So in December, I went to a Colorado River Water Users Conference, and it was fascinating. They were all kumbaya. And there's lots of different elements, and I'm not going to bore you with the laws of the Great River, but there's upper basin states and lower basin states, basically. Lower basin states are kind of under the thumb in some ways of the Bureau of Reclamation, and upper states can pretty much do whatever the hell they want to. That does not make for good fellowship. That does not make to what we're doing the beneficial to all concerned. So in October, everybody had lawyered up. In December, we decided we had a little bit more time. The Bureau said, well, maybe our rush to make you come up with a decision isn't working out so well because all you've done is lawyer up. And December, we're like, okay, we're going to give you a little more time. You guys come up with a plan to cut 85% of your demand. So I lost 95% from the State Water Project, which, by the way, I get to pay for whether I get it or not. It's not like the Central Valley Project. And I'm going to lose 85% of my Colorado, and my agency is 70% dependent on imported water. I have groundwater reservoirs. I have 3 GSAs we oversee, 3. I have a surface water reservoir that people live around. It's only one of 3 in the state that you have body contact. That happens to be my division. And that's full. That lake is full, but can I serve that water? No. You want to know why? Because we have PFAS contamination in that water. And the level of treatment required is taking a $20 million expansion of a water treatment plant to $50 million. And most of you here are growers, so you're going to understand this. My division pays about $500 an acre foot to pump water, treat it, and deliver it. That water now in my reservoir, estimated cost is $1,792 an acre foot. So when you talk about the cost of water, I want you to talk about the value of water. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. If we do not figure out how to work together, $500 penalty an acre foot is going to be cheap. When we don't cut back to the levels the governor demands, we get fined every day. $10,000, $25,000, whatever he decides is reasonable. And that money does not go back into my division. That money does not help some of the impoverished areas in my communities have clean drinking water. We have to work together. I was very proud of this organization when you decided to name yourself the California United Water Coalition, not the Madera growers. First of all, that would have been a target because obviously all you know, if you're a farmer in California, you're the bad guy. You know, you ask people where their food comes from, what do they tell you? Grocery store. You ask people where their water comes from. The tap. The tap. They have no idea how far I have to move it, how much I have to treat it, the energy it takes to pump it, the manpower and expertise it takes to deliver it. Water is truly the silent service of utilities because our pipes are underground. You're the silent service of our civilization because normally you guys don't speak up. You do what you do and you think everybody's doing their job. Guess what? They're not. You were surprised by the implementation of your groundwater management plan because you weren't invited to the table. Or if you were, you weren't paying attention because you thought, oh, it's just another thing. You have an opportunity this year. There are 33 new legislators in California. How they learn about water, how they learn about ag is on you. Because I can assure you, special interest groups are already there every single day telling them what needs to be done for their particular interests. Now, I'm not going to call them environmentalists. Environmentalists are somebody who want to get the problem solved. They come up with resources and money and they come to the table. And I can think of 2. Of all the groups I know, I can think of 2 that actually do that. Special interest groups sue to stop your idea, your progress, your entrepreneurism, and they take that money to go sue somebody else. But you know what else they do? They write checks to people running for office, right? They write big checks. And again, it goes, price is what you pay and money is what you get. Right now in Southern California, we're embarking on, and you can call it, every time there's a new somebody, they call it something different. Now it's One Water. And One Water means that we're going to recycle more. Now my own water district, Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, we recycle 100% of all the water we get. I have a waiting list of people to buy recycled water. Back in the day, I couldn't give it away. Like, what am I going to do with it? LA County doesn't work quite the same. So we're going to invest probably $200 million, $300 million in building a very large advanced water treatment plant that not only will take raw sewage from LA County and treat it where you might think of groundwater replenishment, where we put it out on ponds and let it soak down. No, we're going to put it right back in the system. It's called direct potable reuse. Lots of places do it all over the world. You're going to have to get over the ick factor if you come to LA. You're going to have to like it. But that makes us more self-reliant, not inter-reliant. And we really need to make sure that we take this opportunity, not only with new electeds, but the ones that have been there fighting for you. Thank them. Let them know your name. Go visit them. Go visit them in their district office. Come to Metropolitan. Invite Metropolitan and our member agencies. We have 400 sub-agencies, but so maybe not invite everybody at once, to come see what you do. It's important. Right now, the new chairman of Metropolitan, Adon Ortega, is a graduate of ag leadership. Did y'all know that? He started the California Municipal Water Association for small mutuals in rural communities to ensure that they had clean, safe drinking water. He worked for Bill Jones, who was one of their policy people in Southern California. He understands ag, he appreciates ag, and he wants to invite ag to the table. It's very different when you go it alone than when you go as a coalition and a collaborative effort. When you are talking to your neighbors, when you're talking to your constituents, you don't have to know all the details. You don't know how to have to solve the world or California's water problem. We have experts that know how to do that. There's a list of at least 10 major projects right now that solve the water crisis. Another entity that started right about the same time you guys did, of water experts saying this is what we need to do. I'm going to give you an example. How many have ever participated in the public school system of California? There's a certain percentage of our general fund that goes to education every year, just automatic. When's the last time California invested in water infrastructure? I'll wait. 40 or 50 years ago. People talk about Prop 1, loved Prop 1, but Prop 1 paid for a lot of studies, didn't pay for a lot of infrastructure. The governor has a new plan, the water plan. It's not new. I've been around a long time now. It does have much better graphics, I'll tell you that. But it has no money. Here's an example. When I serve about 175,000 people, I cover 3 counties. We have $650 million of capital improvement projects over the next 3 years. We're one of 400 in Southern California. When you look at the state, we need real money to solve real problems. And I'm going to tell you now, all the cheap water's gone. So how we manage what we have and how we work together to make every drop count really matters. It's not about conserving, it's about being efficient. Use what you need, and that's what you take. I'm so proud of all of you that have been part of the conversation with the county. Groundwater, the SGMA, Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, is not going away. If you are not able to come up with a plan that recharges your basin in the timeline that they've allowed it, this particular act will come and allow the state to manage your system for you. Now, you're not going to like that, I can assure you, because the state manages everything so well. That train left. So when Southern California, and you're explaining your challenge, you know what the first thing they said to me? Where they've been for 10 years. We've been doing this for 10 years. And really, you know what you've been doing for 10 years? Feeding us. It's the damnedest thing. You know, I love those stickers that say, my job depends on ag. I want one that says, our food depends on ag. My community depends on ag. First of all, I'm so grateful to be at a winery. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world. Water filtered by great membranes does amazing things. In my area is Temecula Valley. We have 55 wineries now. We had 5 when I moved there. I was 7. No, just kidding. And now we look to grow to 125 wineries. That's in our wine-specific plan. How am I supposed to deliver $1,700 an acre-foot water to these farmers and I have wine grapes? They get to buy raw water, which is about $1,000 an acre-foot. $1,000 an acre foot, right? They don't get the benefit of not paying for their water or not measuring their water. They've had to measure it for a long time. And I have the responsibility as an elected water director to make sure they have the water to get, to make sure I can produce the least expensive, highest quality water for ag use, and then take it to a whole new level for human consumption. I am very fortunate. I have a state senator that does yeoman's work. Kelly Suarto is one of the few Republicans in Sacramento, and he has reached over the aisle to work with Senator Ana Caballero for a Senate bill, 366, that outlines what the state needs to do by certain milestones. We've all got milestones, right? Reduce your demand by 20% by 2020. Now it's 30% by 2030. Electrical vehicle milestones that we've all gotten to reduce our carbon emissions, right? We got those. This puts the burden back on the state. You said you were going to build all this infrastructure, Governor Newsom. Here's a timeline in which you need to do it. So water's nonpartisan. It's not about whether there's a D next to your name or an R or an L or an I or decline not to state or whatever else you want to pick. It's nonpartisan. And if you think you're going to toe party lines and get great water decisions, I need you to think again. I'll give you two great examples. Anybody remember President Richard Nixon? Endangered Species Act. Okay? His intent was not what it came to be, but that was him. How about the Coastal Commission? Anybody get to deal with the Coastal Commission besides me? Governor Pete Wilson. So bad decisions can happen on both sides of the aisle, and so can good. But the best chance we have is to reach across the aisle. And the best chance we have is to reach across geography. This is Southern California's water portfolio. We're very proud of it, but it's very expensive. It would be far better for us to rather build another Diamond Valley Lake than maybe to do some groundwater banking with you. Maybe some storage programs. We put it in your in your basin now, saving for a sunny day, and pull it out and move it when we need it. That takes infrastructure. That's not cheap, but it's possible. We do it in other places. Why don't we do it here? Because we haven't had the conversation. The Metropolitan Water Board had a retreat on Monday and Tuesday, and I think I texted Mark in the morning. I had a very hard time at the beginning of the conversation. I'm not going to tell you why, but it was very hard for me to keep my mouth shut. Probably surprised all of you. I did. And what I realized as the days went on, it didn't matter what their why was. What mattered is we came to agreement on what we're going to do is. We're going to build more storage. We're going to build new supply. We're going to explore ocean desal, not once, but 3 different locations. We're going to figure out how to store more water in our groundwater basins by tying into each other to work on interagency, not just exchanges on paper, but molecule transfers. We're going to explore storage options in other parts of the state because I heard our chairman say we need to help ag. We can do this. We just woke up. And I think water experts, water professionals, as a group, and I'm not trying to paint them in a bad way, keep their head down and their nose down and their pencil to the paper. Their job is water reliability. You don't want them to get too innovative. It's public health. You don't want them to go off the rails and think, oh, let's try this. So a few people die. Yeah, that doesn't work in water. You know, it really is about, you want someone that is risk averse. But as a policy maker, I don't have that luxury. I need to stand up, step up, and speak up. Because I want to make sure that California is once again golden, and not because the hills have turned brown. I don't know if you want to take questions, Mark. Yes, sir.
I just want to touch on something you referred to with regards to the restrictions of water that affected the Kardashians or Tom Selleck, and you mentioned that they did not like that. And seeing as how we spent enough time together, You're very intelligent, very engaged, is what I've learned. You may have the most accurate answer. Who do you think the Kardashians blame? Who do you think the Tom Sellecks of that elite movie star group of people blamed when they didn't have ample water?
Their water district. 100% their water district. And I picked those two because they're on polar sides of the aisle. So what did Tom do? He went and bought trucks of water and had it trucked in and watered his trees. He bought it, he paid for it. Good for you. The Kardashians went to their house in Palm Desert and just didn't bother. What happened to a lot of very wealthy people, and I can give you kind of an example. You all talked about metering. My district has had automated meter reading for 20 years. We have an app. You can actually manage your water from your phone, even as a household. 42% of my division doesn't open their water bill. 44% are on auto pay. Now, from my CFO, he loves that because they're not looking. I live in Canyon Lake. It is a private city. It's gated. The lots are so small, you guys probably couldn't turn your pickup around. I mean, we are very high density. Very minimal turf, really. It's more of a drought landscape thing. My customers, some of them have $900 a month water bills. You know why? They're not paying attention. I have a lot of famous people that live in Canyon Lake as a second home. They have somebody that pays their bill. They're not ever there. But so obviously money's not a motivator for them, right? They don't care. What is a motivator for them? The lake. They live on a private lake to water ski, to wakeboard, to party, to enjoy. What happens when nutrients from your landscape run into water? It feeds algae. What do they not like? Algae. They call me, Darcy, there's algae up in my dock. What can you do? Nothing. I can do nothing. What you can do is go shut your sprinklers off. When it's pouring rain and I'm driving through my community and the sprinklers are on, no different than where those rich people live. So what did CUWC Water District have to do in Las Virgenes? They put flow restrictors on all those meters because you'd use too much. The other part of that 5% of water, we have to pay it back to the state in water. So if we get 50% this year, which it looks like we might, we're only going to get to take 45.
Do you think though, so I maybe don't see it properly because I spend every day at the farm with the cows, all that good stuff. When I asked that question, I thought that you may say that they point the finger at farmers and agriculture.
No.
And the only reason I say that is in the last 10, 15, 20 years of my life, it seems like agriculture has been vilified.
Oh, you are. You are bad, but not from individuals, but from special interest groups. So let me make that's the difference, right? So the Public Policy Institute of California, the PPIC, anybody familiar with that? A few years ago, they revised the amount of water by sector. It used to be you all were really bad. You used 80% of the water and the environment used 10 and urban used 10. But the new numbers are urban uses 10%, ag uses 40, and I say that's only if you get it, and the environment uses 50. So during this historic drought, which really wasn't, it was the 27th driest year on record, 1976 and 1977 were far drier. We got 5%. In 1976, I got 60%. And in 1977, I got 40% off the State Water Project because I didn't have restrictions on moving water like I have today. When you are looking at telling urban users, and that means, by the way, all those jobs that were in Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks, those big food production places, actually they make pies and whatever, guess where they went? They moved because you You cannot manufacture or process food with no water, I guess, unless it's an almond, but that's not what they grow there. The farmers are the bad guys because special interest groups have made you the bad guys, and you have remained silent, and silent is acceptance. I own a farm in North Dakota. For all your health and safety, I'm not the one that farms it. I get money offers every week from the Farm Bureau. You want to put a new fence in? Do you want to? And if anybody knows Joe DeBosque on the west side, I send him these every week, and his blood pressure goes up and up and up. Because you guys, even in California, you don't get the same deal everybody else does, right? But silence and not stepping up is going to keep you there. You know those QR codes that you get on produce in the grocery store, the barcodes? I always wanted to put a message on there. There's and I wish I would have brought it, there is a tomato grower who grows grape tomatoes, and it comes in a yellow bottom and a clear top, and when you peel the lid off, it shows you a name of a person who packed your tomatoes. And there's a little QR code, you can scan it, it tells you all about that person. Super cool. Needs to be on the outside, not on the inside. But what do I know? Because people don't always look at the lid, right? Some of my best friends, my family, are farmers. I love to eat. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I can't thank you all enough for what you do. Southern California doesn't always get it. My region does. During COVID, when tourism was at zero, our region benefits $2 billion annually from wine tourism. They come to taste, they shop, they buy, we thrive. They didn't come, they didn't shop, they didn't buy. It was horrible. So for me and my constituents, it's a very easy conversation to have. When I go to LA and they have a different value system than I do, I have to find common ground to move the ball. It can't be what I think. It can't be what I feel. It can't even be what I know. It has to be what can I get done. And my why is very different than theirs. But what I learned this week was it didn't matter the why, which normally that's always what it matters. It matters the what in this case. People are willing to spend money to build new projects. People, the Metropolitan Board said more than one time, sites is a priority. Sites is a priority. Yes. Temperance Flat should have been a priority. Absolutely. I'm not going to swear because I don't know you well enough and I don't want you to think bad things of me. This is about not things you want. This is about things we need. And that word is so intermixed in our culture. We have to fix it. How many of you have friends that live in urban areas? How many of you have brought them back to the farm to visit and make them get in a car or a pickup and enjoy the day whether they like it or not? My favorite ones are because they think I'm just a girl. When someone sits down and wants to tell me the evils of an almond farmer, that's my favorite dinner conversation all day long. Some of my best friends, and I told Mark I have to leave when it ends today because I am going to Mass with his parents, who are third and fourth generation almond growers. When I think of all the benefit almond trees do for our environment, and who's talking about it? How much carbon dioxide do almond trees take out by nature? They're one of the most effective processors of carbon dioxide on this planet, and you remain silent.
1 acre takes out 36,000 miles of driving per year.
Yep. Is that on your website?
I've been speaking about that for 15 years.
Yep. So I actually, for RPAC almonds and doing a whole ESG page with pictures and third-party studies I'd gone to find, because they'll say, well, where'd you get that? Here's another great thing. Water quality is kind of my background. And because my lake has PFAS in it, which if you don't know what that is, it's a man-made chemical. They call it the forever chemical. If you're female and you ever wore lipstick, it's like 1,000 times what the drinking water standard is. It's in carpet, it's in the air, it's in anything non-stick. Waterproof, it's everywhere. My lake was contaminated. It's the only surface water lake in California contaminated with PFAS. Thank you, March Air Force Base. And firefighting foam, right? So this is all coming down, and the only way to take out PFAS is through a process called granulated activated carbon. That granulated activated carbon comes from coconut hulls. Where do we get coconut hulls? Anybody? Anybody at all? Africa. So this environmentally mandate, I am shipping into California coconut hulls from Africa. I'm processing them to get to a small size carbon that is the right size to remove PFAS contamination, and a resin treatment on top of that. Then I get to disinfect it. Oh, and by the way, I have to get rid of the PFAS, which is a whole other issue. I get to ship that to Arizona for incineration, because that's better for the environment. That granulated activated carbon is not inexpensive. It lasts 3 to 6 months, and you have to change all the media again. So I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, but I have really sharp pencil friends. And one of my friends, his name is Issam Najim, and he's a water quality expert. And we were having lunch one day, and I brought almonds. And he starts in. I feel bad for him now. But the conversation, when you look at what we can use the hull for, and what we can use the shell for, and the nut, and all the benefits of the tree, and he stopped me at the shell. He said, "Are there a lot of shells? Could I get some shells?" "How many shells would you like?" He said, "I think I can get, based on the molecular structure of the shell, I think this would be a good replacement for the granulated activated carbon I get in Africa." So the Pereira family connected me to the USDA, who made granulated activated carbon to the specs that Dr. Najim asked, and he's bench testing that right now. So farmers, at the end of the day, he will never say it's great. Promising, Darcy. Results are promising. Whatever. That means good to me. You're going to solve something that 3M could not do, that DuPont could not do with Mother Nature. And when that happens, you need to tell people. You solve a lot of problems all the time. You know, some people would like you not to grow anything. They would like us to eat crickets and black soldier flies, and alternative protein. I just need you to get a voice. I need you to reach across the aisle. I need you to talk to your neighbor. I need you to be engaged, because Mark can't do it by himself. Ralph can't do it by himself. The executive board can't do it by themselves. They have started the conversation. You guys need to continue the conversation. You need to get out there and kick some butt. Be proud of what you do. I'm very fortunate. I co-host a podcast called We Grow California with a gentleman named Darcy, who's a farmer. And we had Aubrey Betancourt on that podcast. Aubrey is the executive director for the Almond Alliance, if you don't know who she is, and boy, is she a pistol. And she's like, "I'm not going to apologize for being really great at what we do." And that's what you need to think of when you walk out of here today. I'm not going to apologize for doing what I do, and I do it well. Farmers are the most efficient business people I know. I'm not going to say cheap, I'm going to say efficient. You do more with less all the time. We built an infrastructure originally to do more with more. And we need to get back to building a culture and an infrastructure in California that is about abundance and not scarcity. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Does PFAS come out in distillation?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Does the PFAS come out in distillation? If you do a distillation process, does the PFAS stay?
It does.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's amazing. And there's actually 133 different types of PFAS and PFOA. It's a whole family, not just one, but a whole family of them. So it's become a huge expense. So when I go to my constituents, and Congressman Calvert is my congressman, love him to death. I asked him for $50 million for my treatment plant. He chuckled. He said, Darcy, I can't give you $50 million. I said, well, what can you give me? So he gave me $3 million. So I'll be back in 2 weeks to ask for $47 million. Yeah, I'm not, I look at it as rebates, not grants. We've all paid that money in. It's time to get some of it back, right? So and there's restrictions on what we can do with it, how we can take it out, where we can store it, how we dispose of it. It's not just one and done. 60% of my budget is compliance. Only. That's it. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned earlier that at the end of your 2 weeks, or 2 days, I'm sorry, that one of the 3 things that came out of the conference was, I think you used the verb explore, 3 possible sites for desal. Can you comment a little more regarding the landscape or different thoughts and such in making that possibility?
Sure. And ocean desal is obviously very controversial. My water district is inland, so I'm not on the coast. We have bought into a project called the Doheny Ocean Desal Project. It is an environmentally sensitive and friendly project. It uses slant well technology underneath the ocean floor and pulls water through the sand up through and then distributes it that way. It works because it's an alluvial bay. The geology is very favorable for that. A lot of times at the beach underneath all that sand, it's bedrock, and this type of technology wouldn't work. When we say explore, obviously it's the feasibility. Like, can we put a well there? Can we pump the water? What's the environmental constraints? Exploring takes 15 years. I started on the Doheny project in 2006 or 7, and just now they got permits. Record speed, right? It met the ocean plan. It met the coastal commission plan. There was no objections or opponents to this project anywhere along the way, and it still took almost 20 years, right, to get it going. Let's talk about some of the other locations, though. And it goes back to local resiliency and reliability. So Ventura makes the most sense to really explore one for that area that is 100% dependent on state water project. I don't know what the geology is there, and that will really determine the approach Metropolitan takes, because obviously you want to build the right plant for where you are that is the most efficient and the least harmful. So that's one place they're exploring. They're exploring expanding the Doheny project. It's a very small footprint right now, but there's opportunity to make it bigger. And then there's a number of us that Metropolitan is now interested in exploring a deal with Camp Pendleton, which is very favorable, because the federal government needs water too. It's the darndest thing. And the Marines matter. So we may be able to partner with the Bureau of Reclamation, the Marine Corps, Department of Defense, and regionally to make that project large and affordable. There is already an ocean desal project in San Diego and Carlsbad. It's called the Poseidon Project. It was a public-private partnership with Poseidon Corporation. They built it, and then the San Diego County Water Authority operates it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about the Colorado River circumstances, of course, heavily affecting Arizona and Colorado itself, Utah, and Nevada. More than anybody, it's going to affect California. And with the circumstances the way they are now, you're looking at the possibility of a huge migration out of California if the worst case scenario happens. I sense a little panic in Southern California with this situation. I wonder, I'm seeing it more in the writing of the journalists than I am necessarily for the people. I wanted to know if it was real, because I for the first time in many years, actually hear them talking about things like the Mississippi River. And one of the things that's been kind of ignored is the Columbia, which dumps 200 million acre-feet per year into the ocean. And a 300-mile pipeline would be a fix for California. In Perth to Kalgoorlie, Australia. They have a 500-mile pipeline that's been there for many, many, many years.
Yep.
Somebody had the foresight to develop that and kept it going, and it's actually changed the agricultural and the whole picture for that region. So why can't we get enough will to collect 10% of that?
So you had 3 questions in there, so I'm going to start with number 1. If I could meet a journalist today, I'd be happy. I meet sensational reporters that want to sell papers or sell digital space or whatever. So I will say take that with a grain of salt, generally speaking. Number 2, because we haven't been able to get to an agreement, upper and lower, the law of the river stands. California has first priority. So are we panicking? No. The issue is about energy, not about water right now, because when it gets to dead pool, we can't produce energy. And have you noticed our state's become more dependent on electricity? Just thought I might mention that somewhere. So that, and it causes great risk to infrastructure that's there. Glen Canyon Dam was never built for these huge sways of a lot of water and low water. And so we're all concerned about infrastructure. Preserving infrastructure is really a top priority. Metropolitan alone has 1.2 million acre-feet stored in Lake Mead. That's our water. We tend to work with ag, especially in IID, Imperial Irrigation District, and Coachella, and we do paid fallowing, we do programs, we do whatever. The last person really, besides Mexico on this deal is Arizona, because Arizona made a deal with the devil. California would be the devil. That we don't want to pay for our Central Arizona project, so we just we'll take last rights, because nobody ever thought we'd be where we are. So you want to talk about panic? I'd panic if I was Arizona, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to sue. I mean, that's how we solve everything, right? Litigate, not negotiate. So we'll see how it plays out. So that's one. At the Colorado River Water Users Conference, they had a gentleman that talked about a viable pipeline from the Missouri River. That pipeline is only 80 miles to the east side of Colorado, where we could put it in Colorado and feed the river and augment. That project is going to further exploration. So why can't we? We can. And this particular modeling that they've done, where to put the pipeline, what's the most ideal alternates, kind of like the Delta, which is the greatest alternate out of a bazillion choices. They worked that out. And it would be a public-private partnership, which makes it more affordable for all of us. So it's a possibility. They are exploring it, not the Columbia, the Missouri. And that's because the players in that area are willing to have the conversation.
So, and the proximity is a lot simpler than...
Yeah.
Columbia, probably Vernon would be a battle.
Yep. Well, it's all going to be a battle anyway, right? It's just how much of a battle.
Yeah.
I saw this gentleman way over here.
Quick question. What about this investment firm out of New York who is buying up property along the Colorado River now and is wanting to start to sell the water upstream from all of us?
So that particular investment firm is actually part of the Upper Basin State program, not the Lower Basin. Upper states work very differently than the Lower Basin. Upper Basin has no storage. So what they take off the tributaries is what they actually get. So if there is really a drought there and they get 40% less water, they get 40% less water, and really even less than that because they're mandated to move X amount of water through. And it was no different than a gentleman asked about people buying up farmland, right? You know, water rights are water rights, they're property. And if they want to sell their water, it's no different than a farmer that sells Metropolitan their water, to be quite frank. It's a deal. You may not like the deal, but it's a deal nonetheless. So I think, though, when things get cut back and you don't have as much to sell, you know, water is not something I think unless you own all the water rights, makes a great investment. Right now, it's a huge risk. So people are talking about it, but not to the level that you might think they are. Maybe they should be, but they're not. Yes?
Newsom recently did an executive order.
Yes, he did. It's actually in my purse.
Yeah, I think in direct reaction to the real strong uptick in reporting about how much water was being sent out to the ocean.
Yep, 6.9 million acre feet in January alone.
In a couple of instances, Newsom has been forced to do the kinds of things that he would have never done before.
Yep.
One is the effort to keep Diamond Canyon going. The other is the ones through cooling of the natural gas. I mean, he recognizes that we have an electrical grid that is increasingly unreliable and increasingly unaffordable.
Yep.
He is being forced to do things.
Yep.
I think this is one of those things. I get concerned because I did read through it and did have my staff did some looking at it. It's a lot of language mumbo jumbo. I wonder what it really means, because I will tell you, in 10 years in the legislature, I made a number of trips to look at options in electricity and water and energy production and all. And I traveled with members of the RDC.
God bless you.
And I remember I was part of the discussions about the water plant, and folks, I think that we supported something that had a language in it that doesn't matter that got passed. Nothing's been done.
Nothing.
And I will recall a trip up into Alberta. We were looking at the shale they were doing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And RDC was with us. And we stayed at that hotel, and we had little dinner. And this individual, I think, read a little too much. And he was very explicit when he said, Jim, on water bond, we're going to fight you for every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, if you get the dam, we're going to fight you for every drop of water.
Yep.
That's what we're dealing with. And what I'm concerned about with the government is I think it's ambiguous about how much fish and environmental interest there is.
Yeah, it's not metered.
Huh?
It's not metered.
I understand. And so, what do you think of that effort?
So I will tell you that I had the opportunity to have a cocktail with our chairman of the State Water Resources Control Board in Las Vegas. And a mutual friend introduced us, and she knew it would be contentious. And he looked at me, and the things that I were bringing up, like we need more storage, that we can't, I don't care if it's above or below, we need more storage programs, and you need to help us move water. And he said, I'm not buying that dogma, quotes, air quotes at me. And I said, don't disrespect me, because this is something I believe in and you don't. That's where we start the conversation. That doesn't where the conversation ends. And let me remind you, I was just reelected unopposed for 4 more years. I'm here for 4 more years. You, my friend, if enough pressure, are gone tomorrow because you are appointed. He told me he would not support any storage unless the majority of the storage was for the environment. So this is who we're...
I thought on the reporting we were seeing was that the government finally had this wake-up call, and we got a lot of water, he's going to try to say to do stuff. I'm not convinced that that's what the board's going to do.
No, he talked about drought conditions, and that's what I've been really talking about in Southern California, not the word drought, because drought, there's a definition to drought. It's an extended dry period without precipitation. Drought conditions can exist for a variety of reasons, including the 6.9 million acre feet he let go underneath the Golden Gate Bridge just in the month of January. You know, the biological opinion, and by the way, it doesn't matter to me who was president when that biological opinion happened, but they like to throw that in there on a regular basis because it was the past administration, detailed when they had to hold back water for endangered species. And Fish and Wildlife decided to hold back an extra 3 days of water before we could pump it or move it. Those 3 days equal 1.27 million acre feet. By raising the allocation from 5% to 30% for us, that's 1.27 million acre feet. Think that's a coincidence? I don't. That whole water plan, look, I came up with a water plan. That same water plan was Pete Wilson's water plan, except this one has much better graphics. Pete Wilson talked about in April of 1992 in San Diego at a press event that water in California was a three-legged stool: ag, urban, and the environment. And any time one of the legs was shorter or longer and we were out of balance, our economy suffers. Our people suffer. He couldn't have been more right. Environment does not meter their water. You all get to, though.
Nor are they accountable for the results either.
No, because how many Delta smelt were at the last count? 0, right? But we're gonna stop the most powerful pumps in the world because of that. And I'm going to tell you, the Delta's, I could speak all day on the Delta, but it's very complex. You have subsidence issues, you have seismic issues, you have species, both invasive, endemic, and native. You have water quality issues. You have the Army Corps of Engineers took all the habitat out, and where do you think these Delta smelt are going to hide? In cement or concrete? It doesn't work that way. And striper bass, what's their favorite 2 things to eat? Delta and salmon. Now, I've never seen a striper, but Mark explained it to me. It's kind of like a white shark, so of freshwater. So, we don't even call in Southern California, we don't call them islands, we call them holes. Because when the levees break, the water's going to fill in. An island is above the water. Because of subsidence, this is below sea level. Does anybody ever go to the Delta? You see all the rocks, on the side. You know who put that rock there? Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. We paid for every single one. Why? Because when the levees really break and we have liquefaction, we can move those rocks and minimize the amount of salt water that will flow into the State Water Project. You had another question, sir?
Could you kind of highlight, how much electricity it costs to transport water? Because I don't think people really understand that 1/3 of the electricity on the planet is used to move water.
So we're going to have a difference of opinion here. If you look at all of the water or all the electricity in the state of California, they will say that 80% of it is used to move water. And I'm going to counter-offer you through hydroelectric power, we put 75% back in the grid. Nobody wants to talk about that. Do you know we also have hydroelectric within our distribution systems that you don't even see? Because in Southern California, we move about 2 billion gallons a day of water, and most of it through gravity. Now, my particular region, we have like 17 different pressure zones because I'm hilly, but most of Metropolitan is not. Where the pipes are not. They're able to capture that energy and put it back into the system. So I agree with you. Water's very heavy. It takes a lot of energy to move it, but when we move it, when generate hydroelectricity, we put it back in. And by the way, we only get 1 credit for every 3 credits we generate, because somebody in this legislature decided hydroelectric power wasn't green.
So if I invented a pump that moved twice the water for the same energy, is that a big deal?
It's possible. Because the pumps we have, we're not in the for right now business, we're in the forever business. I buy pumps that last 50 years. I'm not changing them out. They're 50, the Colorado Aqueduct has been shut down 1 time in 100 years, right? For cleaning and maintenance. We're in the forever business, not the for right now business.
Darcy,
yes, sir.
You buy pumps and they last 50 years. Mm-hmm. Well, we farmers buy engines that can last 50 years, but the state air quality board makes you buy and spend, God knows how many tens of thousands on an engine, and 3 years later they say it's not a high enough standard, throw it away, put oil in it, get another engine. The new engines are not as good as the old engines. So I agree with you.
So as a water district, I buy rolling stock. When people really appreciate a wastewater system? When it doesn't work. So when you have a sewage spill, I send these big vacuum trucks up that vacuum raw sewage, right? They don't work on electricity. There's nothing out there that does. So should I just let it sit there? Should I let it flow into the lake? What would you like me to do with it? Because you know what the one thing people want you to do with it? Move it. And they want it now because it's always during a holiday that this happens.
Thanksgiving.
We triple our flow on Thanksgiving through our wastewater treatment plant. Triple. We good?
Good.
Can I throw something in here?
You can, doesn't mean I'm going to catch it.
I don't want this conversation to be about me, but I just want to throw in a wrench. And here's the wrench. I take electricity, I break it into hydrogen, oxygen, gas. I detonate that in Mach 4.5 shockwave. It creates a bit of superheated steam. It breaks part of the water into additional hydrogen, oxygen, gas, which extends the detonation period. So I create more displacement than the displacement in a pump for less energy. And so I invented a more efficient pump. But it seems that nobody's interested in a more efficient pump to help solve some of these problems. Well, you know, I can move water at the same, I can sit here and create vacuum at the point that it boils water at 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So where somebody would sit here and put a reverse osmosis plant on the ocean, I can sit here and put a pump 50 feet above the ocean, turn that thing on, force the water to turn into steam, push that into water for less energy than they're going to run that reverse osmosis plant all day long.
And I'm going to say good luck. I'm not going to say no, not right now. It's the process. Again, I'm in the public health business. You're in the ag business, right? So everything I do, I have to prove has not only bad consequence for the public I serve, but the environment in which I serve it in. And when you say heat up, and you're going to deal with people that have an understanding of what they believe climate change to be, and you're going to put any extra heat anywhere, I wish you well.
No, I'm not putting any extra heat. What happened?
You know what? I totally will have a conversation with you offline. And I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, for me personally, when I look at spending ratepayer dollars, my customer dollars, I have to go with tried and true that I know will last 50 years. So are there methods and mechanism to which your technology can be tested and vetted and whatever? Absolutely.
Yeah,
it just takes time and money.
Where you've got motors and all this other stuff, I don't. It's just a combustion.
I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of appurtenances, that's for darn sure. My good, Mark?
Okay, thank you very much, Darcy. Michael, you want to come up for a few minutes?
Thank you, Mark. My name is Michael Marr. Some of you might remember I ran for Congress last cycle. I'm happy to be here and really thankful that everyone's here focusing on water and solutions. Rachel had a great speaker that came, and I was a special agent also with the FBI, and I know some of the restrictions that were placed upon me when I was in the organization, and I couldn't address that. I will happily address some of those things. I'm going to share some comments on what was said. Also, quick background, I did nuclear power production in the military. I built wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants all the way from up in Northern California to Southern California, and love water. Some of the things that were talked about on the government side, yes, you have made questions on if there's a threat actor doing a cybersecurity intrusion on a business, does the Bureau go out and address those concerns? Yes, they do. And it's not public. And that gets into a Fourth Amendment issue as far as you're being secure in your papers and effects. No, the Bureau is not spying on every single person, in this country, they do have access, and some of the programs that they do have access are classified, and so the Bureau will not talk about them. If any business wants to have that, it's publicly available. You can report through IC3, there's a CI Watch, and there's also InfoGuard. These are programs that are available directly interfacing with our customers. One of the nice things about being here at a winery and on the ag, China is an extreme threat. So I worked on some cases where China is in the United States doing what? Stealing crop genetics. This is a counter-espionage and economic theft. So we recently saw a spy balloon. There's multiple things, and there's public articles talking about some of the technology that was on those platforms and what they can do. So specifically for us here in the Valley, what do we use? We use SCADA systems, right? Supervisor control, data acquisition, how we manage our pumps. We went from on and off pumps to variable frequency drive pumps to conserve energy. All of our processes. So if everyone remembers the nuclear program many years ago, where a government agency hacked into a SCADA program and shut down Iran's centrifuges, spun them up so fast that they burnt out and stopped nuclear enrichment. So that was a classified project that became public. Those things do occur, and that was decades ago. The things that are publicly available for even non-state actors, individual groups with some know-how, are serious. So when he spoke about maintaining network security, IT infrastructure, not using the passwords that are right on the back of your routers, that's very, very good advice. The Bureau can't give direct advice because that opens up to things. The passwords from your browsers, the lady over there asked about that. Banks, and when you go through your web browser, through Safari, through Firefox, through Chrome, it's not the bank that's giving you that automatically generated password. It's your web browser. So it's Apple, it's a keychain. And this is something just recently that came out. Google Chrome had an extension. All of your passwords are saved in your web browser. So it's your web browser providing that recommended password. They are safe if your browser is good. If your browser's not good, which we saw, people are hacking in and taking all of your passwords out of your web browser. So it's imperative. That's why anyone who works in the government, they know that they have to change their passwords all the time, or they'll have a key token that verifies that. Multi-factor authentication is a must in today's day and age. Those are some of the things that he couldn't talk. But I will say the fact that we have Rachel, who has access to these people who are able to come and speak, is a huge asset. And I know she can answer a lot of those questions too. And then there's so many great government programs available. You mentioned about your pump. So when I was at Harvard, one of my classmates is the Director for Business Development for Department of Energy. And so when you start a new technology, there's FEL levels. So it's a readiness level. That's a conceptual project. It's probably a FEL 3. You got to be at a 9 before you're even going to get to places where it can get implemented. But there's money available for that project. And so knowing how we access state projects, state money, how we access federal money, how they interact, is what Mark's been able to assemble in the group here, and they can be answered. And then the last point, I think we've seen what happens in California. A lot of stalemate and a lot of problems that continue to go on. And I talked about this before. This is a branding issue for ag and water, and this is exactly what was just spoken about. We need this problem. It's a real problem. The chairman says, no, we need a dam. We're going to fight you every step of the way. So we need to focus on how do we get out there and brand this so it's not an attack on the farmer. From the coconut husk to the almond hulls, the activated charcoal, real technologies. Yes, we do suck carbon out of the atmosphere in our almond farms and every tree. The problem is now we can't do ag burning. So what are we going to do? We're going to chip these trees, and then the methane gas that's going to be released and the carbon. So you're no longer creating that environmental savings. And there's other great technologies that are available that we've already created here in the Valley to deal with those things. And it's coming together and speaking about this in a way that says we have the solutions. We're here to feed you. We're here to take care of you. And we're actually here to make the whole country and the world better. There is, lastly, the other part you asked about food insecurities. Yes, there's people in the government currently working on that. I started an FBI PAC. So I have the former assistant directors coming to speak at convention next month on some of these issues. There is government agencies specifically focused on that. We have the ambassador to the UN for Food and Ag, Ambassador Cindy McCain, dealing with these and talking about these issues. These are things that are being addressed. The problem is when you have policymakers, the regulators, and then you have the people actually on the ground going out and implementing it. Are we making sure that we're communicating between those groups? And is it getting back to the public? So again, from chicken eggs laying to fires in warehouses to derailments on trains, 4,000 derailments on trains a year. Where are we looking at? Are we looking at actually journalists? Or are we looking about radical reporters who are selling things? Everything has to be measured in our response and the information that we read. As a Christian, for me, that was my dad used to say, be a Berean. The guys who actually went and read the word and double checked everything that was said. Am I taking this as gospel? Well, let me go research this and see if it is and provide some context. We have great electeds here in the room that we have access to. We can go ask and get clear answers on those things. So the resources of the California United Water Coalition is really putting together a team, not just here in the Central Valley, but connecting the state to really secure and address these issues. And happy to answer questions. I know everyone's been sitting for a long time too, so I don't want to go on, but there are good people working on these things, and there's a lot of people that aren't working on things, and we need to get people in place to do that. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer. If not, I'll give it back to Mark. Outstanding. Thank you.
All righty. Well, I would like to thank all the speakers for speaking today. We have some breakfast burritos that we have for everybody. My son's bringing them in right now. And we're going to go on a bus tour. Ralph's going to host a bus tour. So I encourage everybody to go on the bus tour, or you can grab your burrito and get on the bus, or grab your coffee or whatever. I was going to speak on the history of California water, but there is a very good article that I've placed in the binder for all of you to take a look at. So those people that, I know Steve has a bunch of binders, so those of you who want a binder, please grab one, and you can read about the history of water in the state, because I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned, because as we find, a lot of these problems and a lot of these solutions have been talked about ad nauseum over the past 200 years. But somehow, we don't seem to be very good at learning lessons. So I think that's one of the big things going forward is to learn some of the lessons from the past and learn some of the lessons of the arguments that have been made. And I think when you do that, you'll find yourself not only much more educated, but much more involved in really what we're doing. Anyway, so like I said, please grab yourself a burrito, use the restroom, whatever, and we'll start loading up the bus here in about a few minutes.
After the CUWC Roundtable, we provided a bus trip through some of Madera County's farm ground to show the unique situation that makes up Valley agriculture. The portion you are viewing is our first stop to show some of the equipment necessary to farm in today's world. The California farmer is a valued national resource who provides 70% of all fruits and vegetables for the nation and a significant percentage of food for other countries. On the trip, we viewed equipment, orchards, vineyards, citrus production, as well as irrigation systems. Water is an expensive input to making a crop and is used judiciously. Farmers are environmentalists of the first order, but they realize that people need to be the highest consideration in all environmental decisions. Farmers are about common sense solutions. It is our hope that you reach a better understanding of the difficulties before us and that you will stand with us to preserve the prosperity of this state by insisting on responsible people in leadership positions to make wise decisions affecting farmers in every course of action.